just as deep. We are not so strong that we don't cut and we don't bleed. And yes, our skin burns in the sun. We can get a sunburn. I mean, like, I can go on and on and on, but you know what? It's time to show the vulnerability alongside of the strength. And so that's what's coming up for me. That's the awarenesses and awakenings that I'm personally experiencing, as white and white presenting people are having their own awarenesses and awakenings about how their privilege and how racism has benefited them, the systemic racism. But it's also what I'm realizing about myself and everything that I've absorbed and taken and persevered through and succeeded in spite of, is really coming to light now, to where I'm on a mission to share our stories, because I know we all, as Black people, especially Black women, have stories that we've absorbed and maybe never shared because we want to protect our children. Why bring it up? What's, like all of the stories that we told ourselves about the stories that we've endured. It's time to share them all, because it will help people see us, really see us, and what we have endured from birth through our ancestors and through our generations, that they have no idea. I mean, I'm thinking of stuff that I've never shared with my daughters. I have two daughters, and one of my daughters is actually a consultant for diversity, inclusion and equity and inclusion. And she consults on businesses and startups to really bring that into the workplace. And so she's been in the work longer than I have. I just haven't paid attention. I'm just glad she's out of the house and making money. Like, I'm looking at it as a mama. Don't have to come back home. Yes. But that's what it's done for me, and how I'm still growing and learning in this journey, and in the experience of the feelings that are coming up for me as well.
And thank you for sharing that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to kind of piggyback off that. For me, I primarily am a life coach that deals in relationship issues. And the way I see the world, everything is a relationship. Everything that we encounter is a relationship. And the one thing I've noticed through all of these situations, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, is that there is a major breakdown in communication in our relationships with one another. And we don't know how to get this conversation started, because we're in this precarious position where everyone wants to have their voice heard, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But also, in that sense of wanting your voice to be heard, we also want to just be right. Nobody's willing to sit in the discomfort, in the pain, in the heartbreak. No one's willing to let their hearts break for any of the stuff that's going on. It's push on, soldier forward, and I'm going to be right. And as a Black man, as a gay Black man, living in the Bible Belt of the Midwest, right? It's particularly difficult because people don't want to hear. They want their voices to carry and to do things, but they're doing things that they maybe even are antithetical to the actual cause or the mission that we're going for. And what I'm seeing from just a coaching and a relationship perspective is we have a major communication breakdown among all of us. I did a video when the Breonna Taylor thing came out, when the decision was made, and it was a very insulting decision. You're going to charge one of the police officers with wanting endangerment of people who are shooting into other apartments that you could have possibly hurt someone, but we completely disregarded Breonna Taylor and how her life was taken, and no one was held accountable for that. And at this point, I don't see the issue as a Black Lives Matter versus a Blue Lives Matter. It's so beyond that. That's a good starting point. But this is much bigger than that. This is really an issue of the heart. This is an issue of morality. This is an issue of emotional intelligence. and communication. And we have a breakdown, and no one's willing to sit down and just say, okay, here is where the breakdown is. It's time to have some uncomfortable conversations, because the moment we begin having uncomfortable conversations, that's where our healing is. But we have to be willing to go there, and on both sides, we have to be willing to listen and not speak just to be right. And that's difficult because of what we have been through historically as Black people in this country. It's to the point where we're like, well, we're tired of talking. We're tired of demonstrating. We're tired of doing all of these things. So what is the right answer? At this point, there isn't a right answer, and the demonstrations that we're doing as a people are very well justified, and I totally support them. But we also need to make sure that we are acknowledging the fact that there is a breakdown. There has been a historical breakdown since we were, taken away from, our home countries and brought here against our will. The breakdown starts there. But a lot of people, you have people in the position saying, "Well, that has nothing to do with me because I didn't live back then. I can't be accountable for what people that I never even met did." Where, at least in my perspective, I'm not asking you to be accountable. I'm asking you to be aware, and I'm asking you to be aware of the layers that have been built atop this, and asking you to kind of dig into it, because there's a lot more to Black history than February. There's a lot more to Black history than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. There's a lot more to our stories than being enslaved or all those things. We need to make sure that as we're speaking, as we're demonstrating, as we are showing up in the world, that we we hold our stories, but we don't re-victimize ourselves by living the story. By It's okay to tell your story. It's okay to share the experience, but we don't want to get into a position where we're in a perpetual state of re-victimization. Because how do we get out of that hole if we're constantly there? So that's kind of what this has brought up for me. It's just a major breakdown in communication. I'm one of the people that I'm willing to have the most uncomfortable conversations, because again, the discomfort is where the truth is, and it's where your healing and where your growth is. And I think it's time to get that kind of conversation started.
That's amazing, and so many great points, and so many things that we've touched on. I think for me, it is number one, the education, because there's so many things that are micro and macro aggressions that,
Absolutely.
like Eva has mentioned, that I write off. I'm just so used to it. And I think Lisa talked about it this morning, that, when she goes in the store, she makes sure her hands are visible. Yeah, I do that. I didn't even think about it anymore. I don't even, it's just something that is inherent now. And so I think that it comes down to being aware, having people be aware, and having people get themselves educated so that we can make reforms. This planet is going through huge reforms right now, huge
Absolutely.
institutions that are traditional are being questioned, are being reformed, there's a light being shown on so much right now. This is the time that, and thank God for COVID, because I think that because of
Mhm.
COVID, people are listening differently. Because George Floyd's murder, Breonna Taylor, Aubrey, these have been going on. Tiffany, you said this is not new, unfortunately, sadly, tragically, it's not new. But people are listening and people are watching with a brand new eye because of all the other stuff that's going on in the world. So thank God that it took something like a worldwide pandemic to have people listen differently and listen intuitively and want to make changes. This is the first time that I have heard conversations around reform, police reform. This is the first time I've heard
Mhm.
conversations around, okay, where do we need to look at hiring Black entrepreneurs in a different way. We need to look at hiring Black employees in a different
Mhm.
way. And we need to look at it where they're supported in the workplace. where they're supported when we hire them. So there's different conversations going on. And I think I'm so grateful for Eva and the work that she does in her Facebook group, The Intimacy of Race, because she is one of the people that's keeping this conversation going. Like Larry, you said, it's not something that you jump in and then, okay, after a while, it's like, 6 months later, and nobody wants to hear about it again. And,
Right.
450 years of oppression. So yes, we get to hear about it and keep hearing about it until we can form the reforms that support everybody mattering, that support everybody, supporting one another, and everyone standing for one another, everyone knowing what's going on out there, so that it's not this wool over our eyes, like, oh, well, they don't do this because that's, who they are, and they're, and all the stereotypes that come up. There's stories behind that. There's a huge story behind that. And we all get to step into what the hell is really going on here, so that we can all step into responsibility. We can all be responsible for one another, because it is true, we are here, we are all sharing this planet. This is not one person or one group's planet. This is our home. This is where we all share. And for us to all move forward as a people, as a species, we all get to share, and we all get to support, and we all get to look at what's not working, because this has not been working. This has hugely not been working.
Yeah. Rima, I just have to say,
because of that.
Yeah, I just have to just jump in and just highlight a couple of points that the other panelist says. Like, one of the things that Eva says was that about not you being so used to coddling white fragility, it's just a habit. It's just a habit. And that's something, when she said that resonated with me deeply, because I think, again, as W.B. Du Bois says, we always have this veil, this sort of like double thinking. Where are we and how are we being perceived by them? And it's always like who we are and how we're being perceived. Is that really, are we doing a justice to ourselves and to others by continuing to do that? And also, as Larry said, it was amazing because so many people come to this conversation, us included, expecting to be right instead of expecting to understand. And that really hit me. I was like, so, because everybody's like, okay, well, I'm going to come with my point. They're going to understand me. I mean, I'm like, how open are we really to understanding someone else's point of view if it's diametrically opposed to ours? We get to be open to that.
And that's the thing. That there is the thing for me, I think, because I think we even see it, in our families as Black people. There are things that just as Black people, and I think everybody here will understand, that we just don't talk about. We're just not going to go there. These are just things we don't talk about as Black people. It's just now becoming a thing, at least in my experience, that Black people even go to therapy. Before, you go to church and get you some Jesus and everything's going to be okay. And that's not a solution. Is it part of the overall puzzle that we have here? Absolutely. Whether you're a Christian or whether you're, if identify with any other religious order, whatever that is, that's part of the puzzle, but that's not the whole puzzle. And we're so focused on that one little puzzle piece. Black people don't do this. Black people don't do that. Black people don't do this. Black people. No, that's the thing that we have to stop. And we have to be willing, even as Black people, to have the awful, nasty, bottom of the barrel, cringeworthy, just heart-wrenching, true conversations that we need to have among our own community. Because not only is the breakdown, external to us, from coming from, white America and, other people in this country, but it's also an internal breakdown of communication that we have. And we really have to stand in it and be willing to get dirty and not be afraid to get canceled, because everybody's canceling everybody these days. Listen, that's a cop out. That's such a cop out for me. Oh, I'm going to cancel you because I don't like what you say, or you don't know enough, or you don't know what I know yet. So I'm going to cancel you because you should have known. No, where's the room for learning and growth there?
Yeah, and we get to have this compassion and understanding with each other, because for me personally, having a greater understanding of the trauma that we have endured as a people and
Yeah.
how we react to that trauma differently. And we get criticized for how we react to that trauma differently. For example, if a white 20 or 30-year-old or even a teen suffers abuse in the home and they turn to drugs and alcohol and maybe repeating that pattern of abuse, we look for the society looks for every way, our system looks for every way to help them, whether they're on opioids or on this or whatever means they have to escape. But nobody has taken a really deep look, in my knowledge, and I could be wrong, on the effect of the years of oppression and trauma that it's having on our psyche, where some of us are doing better than others, whether it's just denying it, turning a blind eye to it, creating a shield of resilience to it, where others of us mentally are not strong enough and we are turning to drugs and alcohol and repeat patterns of abuse, and then being incarcerated and not rehabilitated, not given the resources to deal with it. I mean, could you imagine, of course I can imagine, but there are some levels that people are experiencing, just growing up always feeling less than and not enough and having to do better and be better just to have a chance. What that does to a person's psyche, and just run that through the generations. What my father had to put up with as a Black cop in a white community, and not being allowed to be in the squad car with another white cop, and being forced to be on a motorcycle cop. My dad stood next to Dr. Martin Luther King as a bodyguard, because they wouldn't put the white cops there because they knew that there was a hit out on Dr. King. So they purposely put the Black cops on his detail in plain clothes. And hearing all these stories from my dad, and knowing him growing up in the South, the burden that our men have on them, and the just depraved indifference for their lives. I mean, literally growing up feeling 3/5 your entire life. Nobody really knows what that does to the psyche. And of course, it's our fault. And I'm guilty of this too, because you know what? I'm doing well. Why can't everybody else be well? And I'm really within myself having such a deeper compassion and understanding of the burden of my own brothers and sisters that I've never experienced before. And it just brings me to tears. However, I'm not going to live in the past. What can I do now? And just like white people, what can we do now? Don't spend any time in shame and blame and guilt. All right, thank you for bringing this in my attention. What can I do now? Because I really want to get it right. I'm not so attached to being right. I'm more attached to wanting to get it right. What do I need to do to get it right? And we're going to stumble and fall. And that's okay, because the mistakes are the tuition you make for the growth. So make the mistakes, but keep getting up. And thank you for pointing out the mistake. We'll point it out in a loving, safe way. But you've got to do something to, we're all having our awakenings at different levels and at different times, but it's all hands on deck. And we get to support each other because we have the desire to get it right, not just to be right.
How do we start that conversation? That's the question I've always had. Internally, in the Black community, in our families, how do we begin those conversations? Making people, kind of like you said, we have no idea what it does to the psyche of an individual. How do we begin to make it safe, or make people feel safe enough to open up and expose that wound so we can treat the wound? Instead of saying, yes, I have that metaphorical bullet stuck in me, but it's fine, I'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't taught on how to do this. We were never taught on how to have these conversations. So we get to really teach our children how to have these conversations, and it starts with our children. I know I have grown ass children, and I am having these conversations with, sorry, didn't mean to curse on your
That's
thing.
fine.
But I'm having these conversations, and my 34-year-old woke up way before I did and became more woke. And and we're having these conversations. Even, we're blessed to still have my father around, to even include him on the conversations and his experience, in the riots in Patterson in 1968. He was a cop and all of that. He's being honored every year on Dr. King's birthday because he's probably one of the one living cop that was there, that met Dr. King, that a week before his assassination, and has lived through that experience. But I actually believe myself, and other people may have other belief systems, but we get to start it now with our children.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to jump in really quickly because to share this story with you, Eva, about children, and Larry, how do we start the conversation, and Rima, with children? Because I have a little child right now at home who came home on Thursday, and we're in a new community. The community is 99% white, and she's going to school, and she came home and had discovered that when her best friend was a Trump supporter, and that there were lots of kids in the class that were Trump supporters. And she was really kind of like, oh my God, because like with her, she associates Trump supporters with being anti-Black. And so she was questioning whether what is the quality and the validity of the friendship with a Trump supporter. And I had to say, well, and I had to have this conversation as far as having conversations that you otherwise wouldn't have. That's why it's really nice to have this whole thing happening, like I was saying before, because we get to have these conversations we wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to have. So I got to point out to her that everybody gets to have their own opinion. And just because that you like something or someone doesn't make you a bad person. I had to have a conversation that they're entitled to vote for Trump, they're entitled to be Republican, but if they can also be your friend. It doesn't have to be either or. And so just having that conversation was really interesting for me, because this is what shapes, and I realized those conversations that happen at home with children, what the parents say shape the future. Like I could have said another way, like what a lot of people say, these people are bad and these people are good. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. A lot of racists teach their children racism is learned. So I had to explain to her that, yes, you can support Trump and still be somebody's friend. You can be a Republican or Democrat or whatever. You're allowed to have your individuality as long as you have respect for one another and you have equality. So in that conversation, I got to teach that lesson. And then I also got to learn a lesson from my older daughter, who wrote a poem about racism. She wrote a poem about racism, and she had this stanza in here referring to George Floyd. And I was like, these are kings and queens that you're murdering. And my husband and I were talking like, why does it have to be kings and queens? Why can't it just be people? Because if you say kings and queens referring to Black people, not everybody is a king and a queen. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then again, it puts a hierarchy in there. It's humanity. And she stood by her point. She goes, the issue is that so many people don't even see us as a possibility of being a king or a queen. Mm-hmm. And we were like,
sitting that truth for a second.
Right?
That conversation just happened a couple of nights ago, and we were like, okay, because before, and actually, to be honest, if I'm honest, I knew she was going to be reading this poem in front of a class full of white people. I was worried about how she was going to perceive. I was worried about their feedback. I was worried about their white fragility. And again, we're always caring about how they think, how they view, what's going to happen, is it going to hurt their feelings, and I'm like, and I was,
that's what we've been programmed to do. So
yes,
and it's a trained response.
Exactly. And so I was like really thinking like, well, why don't you take the kings and queen? That's going to make them uncomfortable, And
but that's what the healing's at. That's what the healing's at.
The more
her answer was so powerful, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, but this is the issue. This is the work. So this is what This
Yeah.
is what we get to do. We get to dive into these conversations when they come up at all times. We get to not look away, not shy away. That's Black people, white people, Republicans, Democrats. Dive into the conversation when it hits the table in a responsible way.
And we
And
get to stay open. Like Larry was saying, how do we do this? We get to stay open, and we get to make it okay that you believe something else, and we can still be friends. You believe
Yeah.
differently. You can vote for Trump, and we can still be friends. You can believe
Yeah.
this, and we can still be friends. But we get to listen, you know, with the intention of being changed, not listen with the intention of responding and just coming back. You know, there's a lot of new ideas that are being presented, so we get to stay open, and we get to stay open to those conversations, and we get to stand in the uncomfortableness of it sometimes, because they're going to be difficult conversations for all of us.
And
and it's okay to be triggered. It is okay to be triggered. It is okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay for all of that, because if it's triggering you, if it's making you uncomfortable, that's something within you that you need to address first. So you gotta sit there in that nasty, uncomfortable spot and say, okay, why is this triggering me? What is this bringing up? What is this making me feel? Why am I feeling this? That's when people say, okay, you got to do the work. That's the work.
That is the
That
work.
right there is the work.
The only way out is through, and we're going to be going through this for a long time. I have to share that when I decided to start the Facebook group and start being more vocal and seen around this subject, especially for white people, you know, the fear that came up in me was, you know, as I shared when I was speaking, as I was building my business, my relationship was falling apart and my husband had cheated on me. And then it's like, oh my God, here I am again, doing something different, changing direction and getting passionate around something else. And he's a white person. How is he going to, he did not marry a Black activist. And all of a sudden I'm very vocal in this space. And I have to tell you, that came up for me, but I actually was so impressed by the way he's been holding space for me to be who I am discovering, a way of being, of support and love in this space, to help white people who are just confused and don't know what to do, but want to do the right thing. And I sat down and I asked him, I was like, you know what, it's time for a little bit of a check-in, to just be present to what he's experiencing and what he's feeling. And it was not at all what I feared, thank God. But yeah, I was really thinking to myself, okay, what decisions am I going to need to make in order to create a both and in my life, you know, still honor my marriage and my relationship and do the work that I am feeling pulled to do. And I realized my automatic protection of white fragility, you know, no longer holds water anymore, you know, and people get to know the vulnerability and the feelings that we have without us being apologetic, us saying it in a certain way so that it cannot offend or hurt. But, you know, we should be talking that way anyway to anybody we're in relationship with, to not, to really create a way of communicating so that our communication lands the way we intend it to land. And that means checking in. What did you hear me say? You know, to make sure that what they heard you say is what you intended them to hear you say, because there's so much misunderstanding and miscommunication when we are listening with an ear to react and respond. We're not always hearing what's being said. So if we can make ourselves fully present to what people are saying, and then, you know, be curious and, you know, repeat back, this is what I'm hearing you say. And if that's not the intention, you know, it's always our responsibility on how we communicate in a way that lands. You know, it is about the process. It is about checking in. What are you hearing me say? And so when I checked in with my husband, what are you seeing me do? What is your experience of how I'm showing up. And he's like, no, this gets to happen. This needs to happen. And he's learning too. Like when I did the Allyship Awareness Forum, you know, my husband was on it. And he was like, I didn't know that. You know, with whatever people was saying, really? We can't touch your hair? You know, it's like, it was really funny, but it opened up a more in-depth dialogue about certain issues around race that we've either tiptoed around before or just never really addressed. So I think the relationship piece that's coming out for a lot of people, you know, can be a deeper connection and understanding of one another. If
Yeah.
you were willing to like be curious instead of furious and have the conversation without the accusations.
Yeah.
And and for me, it's so funny because there is something that you said really got me. That you said, it's moving past, where we've been. We're really good and experts, and this is just people. There's a quote in Ghost, one of my favorite movies, that Whoopi Goldberg says to the Patrick Swayze character. She says, "You are holding on to a life that no longer wants you. Let it go." We are right there. We've been so conditioned, and we are holding on to a life that no longer serves us in any way. But here's the caveat to it. We are wired to win as people, and wherever you find yourself in life, you're wired to win right there. So whether you're being lazy or whether you're not doing anything with your life, you know exactly how to do that. Even though you might be saying, "Oh, well, I should be doing more," and I know this is not the best course of action for me. You know how to do that. You know how to win at that. The discomfort that comes from leveling up and taking off the life that no longer works for us anymore, like you said, that's the big part. And especially Eva, you said you're in a interracial relationship, is that right?
Yeah, my husband's German, so
Oh,
we have different cultures and different skin color.
and see, and I here I am, a gay man in the Midwest with a white husband.
Hmm.
And so all right. So I mean it so it's like, man, could I have chosen any other way? But all the conditioning that we have, we're holding on to something that no longer wants for us, and we need to give up the ghost. And it's okay. It's scary, but it's okay.
I think it's really interesting that we all have white mates. What is that saying?
Oh, that is interesting.
Seriously, all of us?
Yeah. My husband's German too.
Do you speak German? Okay, we gotta talk offline.
really
Talk
have to
about
talk.
German men offline.
We really have to talk about a lot of things.
Well, we're gonna wind down here. Thank you all so much. There are a couple of things that I really just do want to recap and touch on that has been a part of my experience too. When we talk about, like really right now, it's like white people get to be uncomfortable. So I invite any person of color or white person to allow white people to be uncomfortable, not to save them from their fragility. And those uncomfortable conversations are what create the doorway to that up leveling that Larry's talking about, like this transformation that our planet gets to have right now, and that the generational psyche that has come from hundreds of years of oppression, like that to me as a yogi and understanding energy, like that is deep within. And to be able to create a space for that healing and for that shifting as well. And it's just, I think about, again, what Lisa Simone Richards had said about, just how she and her husband, even just now, since the pandemic is happening, how she's seeing how she also has a white fiance. And how different that white people think about things, because they don't have to think about things, because that's not what's been in our history and past. So we get to have this uncomfortability and what I get to do as an ally, I get to have uncomfortable conversations with my white friends and with my family. And I was up until like midnight last night writing my dad an email. And I was like, you really should go to sleep, Susie Q, but I could not stop. I could not stop because this is so important to me too. And what, all of you had said about, it's not about being right, but it's about giving the opportunity for a bridge, for understanding, and going like, I see where you're at and I'm over here, and here's a bridge if you'd like to cross it. And I started out my email with, I love you. And I added my mom and my brother to it too, because I said, I want you to be a part of this conversation. And then I acknowledged how I could understand, like even Tiffany with your daughter's friends, that she probably doesn't even understand, the racism that is associated with Trump. She probably just doesn't even concept he's not racist. He does all this great thing for Black people, and so I got to do fact checking. I got to do my homework, and I got to send links to be like, hey, if you'd like to check the statistics, here are the actual statistics of, because he tends to inflate. And it's not my intention to make this like a big political thing right here, right now. However, that was something that, gets to come up in my family and my household because my parents are not bad people. I remember at one point, one of my friends, when, Trump first got elected, they were like, we should just like kill all the Trump supporters. And I'm like, no, it's my parents. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I love my parents. And, we come from different, like, I'm much more liberal than they are. And we come from different schools of thought. And I'm here to create a bridge. Like that's what I'm here to do. And I know that's what each of you are here to do. And that's why you're here with me today. And I'm so honored and just touched that you would come on and be a part of this. So thank you all so much. And I will bring this round table to an end, and we'll hop into Larry's. And I want to thank you all. And please, Eva and I both put the Facebook link in for the Intimacy of Race. She did it, I did it a couple times. So make sure all the audience members that you jump on that so we can continue to have this conversation and, and heal and really have a world where everyone is safe and that we have equality. So
thank you,
Amen.
Susie, for the words.
Thank you, Susie, for bringing this down together.
Thank you so much.
I love you all so much. Thank you so much. Let's see, Wendy wants to, Wendy's saying thank you. She really appreciates all the speakers for sharing their experience and advice and possibilities and solutions. Thank you, Wendy, for being a part of this too.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to say bye to my ladies, and I'm going to say hi to my man, the oldest man in town. Awesome. So, my goodness, Larry, it's so wonderful to have you. Let's see. I think I can do, there she goes. Okay, great. It's so great to have you on, and you are the only gentle man.
Well, no pressure.
Yeah, right. I know. So let me introduce you to our audience since they haven't gotten a proper introduction yet. So this is Larry Armstead, and he is a truth-seeking Arcology certified life coach, speaker, and writer. His purpose is to inspire and empower others to live their truth as their authentic self. Through his online space, coaching sessions, and speaking engagements, Larry helps you get clear about who you are, identify the things that are keeping you stuck, and dismantle that fear so that you can live a fully authentic life. He does this by encouraging you to ask the hard questions and tell the whole truth and take action. He's an advocate for relationship repair, managing expectations, and self-clarity. He's passionate about helping others and loves nothing more than seeing an individual live their life purpose. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. And thank you for your contribution to the round table. It was that was a special chat, and I'm excited to now dive into. You dropped some little nuggets there, some little breadcrumbs for us. I heard like the cringeworthy, truth and trust. So before we hop all the way in, give us a little background on you and how you got to be where you are now.
Absolutely. So I am the baby of 6 kids, but my family is enormously huge. My family is huge enough that we actually rent out banquet halls for the holiday, and that's not everyone. Last
Wow.
holiday we did a head count last holiday, and I think we had 84, 85 people. That was not even remotely everyone. And I'm the baby of 6 kids, and then of course all of my extended family. But in my family, I've seen so much, and they actually are who inspired me to get a bachelor's of sociology, because I needed to know how people worked. And then to become a life coach, working one-on-one with clients, because in my family we've dealt with everything from severe alcoholism and drug abuse. We've dealt with incarceration. We have dealt with homelessness. I've witnessed that. People with severe drug problems. Um, you know, there's rape, and I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen. And when you start dealing with that many people, and I was like, rather than judge these people that I love, I need to know why these things happen. So it made me become not only go after the degree in sociology, but also to become a life coach, because I'm like, if I can just help one person not have to go through some of the stuff that I endured and that I witnessed and that I experienced, then my job here is done. So that's why I became a life coach, a writer, began speaking, and began working with people one-on-one for coaching.
Yeah, it's interesting because we kind of parallel in a little bit of a way how you got your sociology degree because you wanted to understand your family. Like I became a communication expert because I grew up in a household where yelling was the form of communication, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't like this, what else is out there? So it's really beautiful how our families can really be that kind of launching pad, whether the experiences were good or bad, but be
Yeah.
the launching pad into our life purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and even with me, I mean, I one of the things that was a really big catalyst is that at 16, I lost my oldest brother, the brother that I was the closest to. And at this point in my life, I was just telling my mom this the other night. I really don't have a relationship with the rest of my siblings. Like
Mm.
I would kill to have what you see in the movies, how brothers and sisters and things are, but no, I don't have that. And it's taken some time to heal some of that, because you see other people and you want that, but it that's not that's not my experience, and it's okay.
And is that something that now that you are a life coach and you are really delving into those deeper layers, do you find that you are able to create more of a relationship with them, or are they not really like wanting that? Like where are you at personally?
with
Just
with
curious.
that with me, at this point, I'm accepting what the situation has allowed, right? So I'm never the person, and this is one thing that I teach even to my clients one-on-one. When it's time for your coaching session, for example, and I always tell my clients this: I will never text you or call you and say, "Are you ready?" If you're 5 minutes late, are we still doing it? If you want your healing, you're gonna have to come for it. You're gonna have to come after it, because I can't want it for more. I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. And that's the same thing with my brothers and sisters. I've gone to them several times to try to create a bond in a relationship, and it's very one-sided. And so for me, I'm accepting what's here, and if they would like to pursue a relationship, a deep relationship, then they will, and if not, I am totally at peace with that.
Right. So you have the door open and they're welcome to walk through it.
Anytime they would like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what is the biggest problem that you've discovered in relationships that
Well, I mean,
Mhm.
Well, for me, and this is something that I always say, that there are three components to every relationship, and I don't care if it's your relationship with money, I don't care if it's your relationship with your parents, with your romantic partner, with food, whatever. Three components of every relationship, and if one goes unchecked, then you have a problem in the relationship. And it's, do you see me? Do you hear me? And am I important? If
Mhm.
any one of those things go unchecked, you have a breakdown in your relationship somewhere that needs to be fixed. Those are the absolute three pillars of every relationship.
And so that those would be like the root of the problem. And
Hmm.
what like what are this like symptoms? Like if if there's a symptom and that is the root, how can you discover like what is it that it is the seeing or hearing or am I important? Like how do you get to that root with your relationship, whether it be, I mean, that could even be in business or
Hmm.
intimate family.
Yeah. What it is telling the absolute bottom of the barrel, ugly, uncomfortable, and cringeworthy truth. And this is the truth that you know. Anybody watching, this is the truth that you already know. It's the stuff that you won't say out loud, but that you ruminate over when you're taking a shower, and you're like, oh, I've been in the shower for 20 minutes. Oh, where did I go? Or when you're driving and you don't realize how you got to the destination you were because you were not even in the car mentally. That truth, that stuff that only you know about, and that you just sit there and you ruminate and think about. That's that truth. Once you're able to speak that truth, then we can begin doing some healing work. But we can't begin doing any healing work if you won't speak the truth. Because if you can't speak it, you will not heal it. And you're going to be sitting there saying, you'll become a place where you're a victim of everything. You're 100% victim of everything. Something's always happening to you. It's always, oh, well, they did this to me or this happened to me. No, baby, it's everybody's not wrong and everybody's having the same experience of you. It's you. You're the common denominator. But until you're willing to stop being a Real Housewife of Atlanta or Beverly Hills or whichever franchise you decide to watch, and when you're willing to stop being victimized and say, what is my role? What is my participation? What have I allowed? You can't heal it. And unfortunately, it is the nastiest, ugliest, unprettiest truth that you're not willing to speak. That's how you get around the symptoms. Because you go to the doctor. Yes, you want relief from the symptoms, but you really want the cause, whatever's causing that symptom, to be gone. The truth is the root.
The truth is the root. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first talked, I actually even put it in my notes in here. If you can't speak it, you can't heal it. So how do you help your clients and even our audience like have the courage to be able to speak so they can heal those wounds of the past? Like are there any techniques or like what is your guidance there to be able to speak it?
So it's really simple. The first thing, and I talk about a lot of this in my book, is shameless plug. Talk about this in my book that you can get on Amazon. It's called Where's My
Uh-huh.
Pizza? How to
Yes.
use the power of expectation to create the life you want. But one of the biggest things is just first of all sitting with yourself and allowing your heart to break over the stuff. Did you have an ideal childhood? Are your relationships good where you have them? No, and it's okay to sit in that, just the heartbreak of it, because a lot of times we're like, it's fine, I'll be strong, and I'm good, I'm good. No, you're not good. You're not good. It's okay to sit there for a moment. That there's a scripture from the Bible that says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Well, you keep walking through the valley. Don't take up residence there, first of all.
Right. Yeah.
Number two, realize that what you're experiencing in the valley is only the shadow. It's not the real thing.
Mhm.
And number three, there is something that's casting the shadow, though. Are you willing to look into what's casting the shadow?
Mm.
That's the thing. And if you work when you work with me, I I always say, I'm going to throw you out way into the deep end. I'm going to throw you out to part of the pool where you can't feel the bottom. But I'm not going to leave you unsupported. I'm going to throw you a life jacket, but I'm only going to take you as far as you're willing to go, because let's face it, wherever we're at, wherever we're stuck, wherever we're not willing to tell the truth, we're comfortable there. Even if it's the suckiest situation in the world, even if it's like a physical abuse situation, and we know intellectually, I need to leave, this is not good for me, we will stay. Many people will stay because why? You know how to do that. You're an expert at doing that. Even though it's uncomfortable, and even though you may be, taking licks and punches and everything, you know how to do that. What you don't know how to do is to stand up, stand in the fullness of who you are, assert yourself, and then get on the other side of it, because you're scared of what's on the other side of it, because you've never done it before. And that's what I help you do. I help you stand in the fullness of it and walk through the stuff afraid and see what's actually casting that shadow and the valley of the shadow of death for you.
That's incredible. And I love that looking at what's casting the shadow, and being able to like then take off that onion layer. And yeah, you're gonna be like, you take off a layer, like imagine like taking off a layer of skin. Now you're more vulnerable, but now you have the opportunity to heal and step forward. The other thing that you said about like, I worked with a human behavior specialist years ago, and one of the greatest things I got from working with her was, it's okay that it's not okay. And that was like, that just opened up everything for me and made it okay when things were really tough and hard, and like I didn't have the answers. I was able to go, okay, it's okay that it's not okay. And then like, all right, where's the shadow? So that's, speak a little bit more about how you like help your clients like see the shadow and then not be so scared of it and be able to move forward.
So yeah, perfect. Okay, so here's what I do. I heard the perfect analogy about this, I think yesterday, and I said I'm so stealing that because this is a great analogy. So what I do with clients is, this is called the dirty t-shirt analogy. So you
Okay.
have three people. You have three people with t-shirts, right? You have one with a pristine white shirt, freshly pressed, amazing looking. Then you have someone in the middle who has, maybe a couple mustard stains. You can tell the shirt has been washed, but they didn't treat the mustard stain. But it's clean, it's clean, but there's still a little something on there. Then you have the guy at the very end who's wearing a dingy white t-shirt. And by all intents and purposes, if he wasn't standing next to the other two people, it looks completely white. But when you sit him beside the person who has that perfectly white t-shirt and he's wearing that dingy t-shirt, you can see the difference. And what happens is we're very willing to stand near the person in the dingy white t-shirt, because we then don't have to look at what's going on with us. We don't have to look at what's on what nothing's on my shirt. My shirt is pristine, but his shirt is so dingy. It makes you not own the things that you're going through. But here's a good tool that I have people to use. The things that you recognize in other people that you dislike or that trigger you are the same things that are present within you at that moment, because you won't react to what you don't know. So, and you can only speak about or react to what you know about. So if someone's being some kind of way that triggers you or that makes you feel this, I just don't like them. The question is not why don't you like them? The question is, what is it about me that is resonating with what I see in that person? Because anything that comes up like that, I tell everyone, any message that you get when you're listening to spirit, when you're in meditation, when you're in prayer, any message that you get, you're like, oh, this is for so-and-so. No, baby, it's for you first. It's for you. It's for you first.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel that way whenever I'm teaching my private clients or groups, where when I'm talking, I will even say it out loud. I'm like, this is for me too. Like I'm speaking, but I am listening to this guidance that I am speaking out right now because it's for me too. And that's exactly it. And so I'm curious, what do you think is the most important practice to have with communication in an intimate relationship?
And it's actually sitting down and again telling that truth. That is the biggest driving force that I have, because the truth is your only insurance policy. When you start putting decorations up on the truth, and you put so much decoration on it that looks like a nice ornate Christmas tree, and you have to dig through it to find the actual truth, the basis might be the truth, but you put so much stuff up on it that it doesn't resemble what it actually is. So the key to the relationship is owning the truth, owning your truth, sitting in it no matter how it makes you feel, and then proceeding with it. So here's a perfect example. So my husband and I, a couple weeks ago, were sitting down on the couch downstairs, and we were just having a conversation about some goals that I wanted to achieve. And he was like, "I don't believe you." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Mhm.
He was like, I don't believe in what you're saying. And we ended up having a nice, we don't argue in the traditional sense. He's a counselor, I'm a coach, so we really have the arguing skills down. So we came at it really clinically, if you will. But he was like, it got to the point where he was like, okay, I'll just tell you what's going on. The person that you have become, and there's a whole reason behind it I'll share with you. But the person you become at this point, this is not the person I fell in love with. You talk about somebody throwing an axe at your heart,
Wow.
but that was the whole truth. He could have dressed it up, and he did, and he started dressing up, and I just finally looked at him. I said, "Tell me the truth. Just tell the truth."
Mm.
And he threw that at me, and it was a dagger. It was a axe. But guess what? That's where the healing then began, because now and the first thing was, okay, now I'm going to be defensive. Now I'm going to say, well, what about you? When someone throws that kind of truth at you in an intimate relationship, and your first instinct is to get defensive or throw it back, that's a cop out. That's an avoidance. You need to sit in it, because they're perfectly entitled to their experience of you. You don't necessarily have to agree with their experience of you, but they're entitled to it. And so you have to take that and reflect inward. That's what he says. Does it make sense? Does he have a point? Yeah, he had a point. And for me, it was because of a medication that I was on that I didn't realize that was completely changed the way that I was showing up in the world.
Mm.
And for anyone watching it, I totally advise against anything like Lexapro.
Yeah.
It really does change the personality and the person that you are. And that is what he was seeing it and what he was experiencing. And I had to sit in that and look at it. And of course, the first thing I did was, well, he's effing out of his mind. I'm just gonna go ask other people that are important in my life. And I went to 5 or 6 other people, including my mother, and every single one had the same experiences that he was having.
Wow.
So everybody ain't wrong, baby. Sometimes it's you.
Yeah, and reflection and feedback, feedback is neutral. So when you are either giving or receiving that cringe-worthy truth, I think it's important to remember that it's neutral. And I love what you did where you notice the trigger, but you went and said, okay, I'm going to explore this deeper and see like how I'm showing up for other people too. And I
Hmm.
that was really a wise way to go because sometimes you're going to get feedback and you'll take it on and go, no, that actually doesn't land. That actually doesn't work for me. And when I look at it and really apply it to my life, because everybody is living through their projection and their filter of their past. So sometimes the feedback is a very big filter through their wounds and their pain, and so it's
Hmm.
important to consider it, but not take it on as like it's their truth, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the truth.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, they're entitled, and that's what the one thing I try to get people to say when they come to me with coaching. Well, they did this to me. They did these things to me. No, what's the thing? What's going on? They're entitled to their experience of you. Let them have their experience. It's fine to let them have their experience, because guess what? Their experience doesn't make it, like you said, the truth. It is their truth of what they've experienced with you, and they're perfectly entitled to that. You can open up a website that says, I heard Rachel Ray say this. Someone opened up a website that said Rachel Ray sucks. She actually supports the website. She said, why? Because they're perfectly entitled to think that, and I'm not going to take that from them. If that's what they think, then I'll support that. And that shows a huge amount of growth, especially for you to have a hate site and say, you're perfectly entitled to that.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, I know we've already hit on like your major points about that cringe-worthy truth. Like, what is, like, if you could only give one piece of advice or guidance or tool to our audience, like, what do you think is the most important nugget that they could take away today?
Turn inward.
Mm.
Anytime that any pain is present in your life, that is telling you to pay attention inwardly right now, not tomorrow, not next week. When my husband brought that to me, I could have easily said, and I did initially say, he's out of his mind. And I'm not going to do anything about it. No, it's time for you to turn inwardly to see if there's any truth to their truth. And then the most important part, the part that we don't like to do, is sit in the discomfort of it. We don't like to be uncomfortable. There's not one person watching this or in this that likes to be uncomfortable. That's why we typically don't like to work out, because it causes discomfort, right? I hate going to CrossFit. I love going to CrossFit, but I hate going to CrossFit at the same time, because I know that once I get there, I'm going to be challenged. I'm going to have to lift weight. My lungs are going to burn. My muscles are going to start to ache. Who wants to willingly put themselves through that? But guess what? You start seeing the results in the mirror. You start seeing how you change. You start seeing all of these things, all these positive things, and you're like, you have to say, you know what? This may not be what I necessarily want to do. And don't worry, I don't bite. Only if you guys ask me to. Only if you ask me to, right?
So just so search that in YouTube and you'll find him. And then also you have your book on Amazon. Can you hold that up and show us again? So it's Where's My Pizza? How to Use the Power of Expectation to Create What You Want. That sounds amazing.
It's a really good book, and in the back of it, if you love to cook, I actually did put pizza recipes from all around the world. So all inspired pizza sauces from different regions of the world. I think you guys will love that. And I'll make this to your audience, because you guys have been amazing. That if you either go to Larry-Armstead.com, because there is a LarryArmstead.com without a dash. That's not my website.
Okay.
Larry-Armstead.com. If you go there and to subscribe to the mailing list, I'm going to select Southern Indiana boy.
Okay, because we do have somebody who's tuning in from Louisiana, and let's see. Oh yeah, I'll figure it out and do that soon. So, okay. Anything else you want to just share with us before we pop off?
What I'll say to you guys in closing is, if I can leave one thing with you, is tell the truth. No matter how hard it is, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you, tell the truth. I promise the truth may piss you off, may be uncomfortable, it may be inconvenient, but I promise it will absolutely set you free. As cliche as it is, it will set you free.
The truth will set you free. Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for coming on and being that male energy, holding it down with all of us. And I super appreciate you. I'll make sure to get that link so you can get connected with Larry and get the meditation. We'll start with like a little bit of a dance party. Why not? And then we'll hop into some how to become an influence. And then we'll do a little bit of meditation and yoga with our last speaker. So we have 2 more speakers, and you got me as your host, and I will see you back in a few. Now we're recording. Geez, I just said a bunch of cool stuff. Oh man. So technical difficulties happen, and it's okay that it's not okay if you heard that earlier. But just to recap our people who are watching the replay, where I was just talking about that cringeworthy truth and how in my life personally it has been a theme where from a very young child I have had the opportunity, because I had different thoughts and points of view about life and religion and in general than my parents, that I got to start telling the truth of who I am early on. And what that does is it gives people the opportunity to love you for who you really are. That you are not, uh, you're not being their version of you who they think you should be so that you can be loved by them. And this also goes into that conversation about white fragility, where we act in a way where other people are okay and comfortable, but we sacrifice ourselves in that way of being. So it reminds me of this story that just happened to me recently. So I'm single and dating, and I think well, actually, I'm, I think I'm newly not single anymore, which is very exciting. So that's part of this story. So basically, I had been on the dating apps and meeting really wonderful guys, but nothing was really clicking yet. And I met this really awesome gentleman who was a TV writer, super successful, really funny, handsome guy, had a really nice home, all of the things, right? We had great communication, and I just I wasn't physically attracted to him. I wasn't romantically attracted to him, and I gave it some time, like a couple of months, like more than a couple of months, like 3 months, where I was like, okay, maybe it'll grow, maybe it'll change, because sometimes I'd be like, maybe I'm attracted to you in that way. But when it just came down to it, I realized that it wasn't there for me. And this is what Larry was talking about with really like speaking your truth. And it's gonna be uncomfortable, right? So I finally told him that, and I was wondering what was wrong with me, because he is so fantastic in all these ways, but for me it just wasn't there, and it was super awkward, and it sucked, and he felt rejected, and was really sad, and wound up, it was interesting because the way he wound up handling it was also uh, an indication that we weren't actually a match in the long run. So that was good information too, to see how people handle when you do give them the absolute truth. Like, how are they able to handle it? And so directly what happened after that is I wound up going to San Diego, which is where I want to move. And so I was swiping on the app. I had cleared out, I had, finally made kind of that line in the sand and said, okay, I'm putting the line here. That didn't work. I'm standing for something more. Like, I'm not going to settle. That's a big thing. I feel like a lot of people just settle in life. They settle with their work. They settle in relationship. They settle with their bodies. Like it doesn't have to be that way, right? But it takes the courage and the confidence and the faith. So I had drawn that line in the sand. I let that gentleman, that lovely gentleman, go, and I opened up to new possibility. And I got a bunch of matches while I was done. One of them, oh, my internet is stable. Hopefully it's coming back. And one of them I wound up going on a date with, and it was incredible, right? He was vegan. The visceral feeling of connection was there. And we wound up having 2 dates in one day, because he was going out of town for work, and then and what I realized through this is that it's not, what I realized is that there's two types of people. Yeah, and you can shift your type of person that you are. There's two types of people. There's people that settle, which, it's not that it's wrong or bad. It's just what they do. And then there's people that don't settle and really go for their dreams. And so that to bring you to what I've been inspired to create is this 8-week program for people who don't want to settle. So I'd love to share with you about that. If you don't want to hear about it, it's totally okay. You could just mute me out while I make this offer. And that's totally fine, because I'm here to serve. And if you're not interested in what I have to say, it's totally fine. I'm not attached to that, but I do want to offer it to those people who don't want to settle and who are looking for like that launching pad, looking for support, and then that launching pad. Because what this program is going to do is, it's an 8-week program, but it's going to go over 9 weeks, because in America we have Thanksgiving. So we're going to like take a little pause during Thanksgiving and give people time to be with their families. That self-care that Rima was talking about, where you get to fill up your own cup again. So basically the first half is going to be all about clearing out. Now, not just like clearing out your personal blocks or, your energy or what's going on there, but actually clearing out your physical space. Because what I have found is that your subconscious or your unconscious, it keeps tabs on every little thing that you have everywhere, in your garage, in whatever, wherever it is. And so we're going to clear that out physically, because if you have a desk and it's all cluttery, it's hard to concentrate, right? You don't know where stuff is. It's jumbled, it's unorganized. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear out physically, emotionally, energetically, and we are really going to just make space. Because here's the thing: if you have a bunch of stuff packed in your garage, there's no room for a new car, right? So what we do is we're going to clear out the old stuff, whether it's physical, whether you actually are clearing out your junk drawer or your closet or your garage. We're going to clear that out, because when you create space, then there's opportunity for new possibility, new opportunity, and new like physical possessions to actually come into your life. So we're going to do, the first half is going to be clearing the space out. And then the second half is really going to be all around, what is it that now that you have this clear space, what are you putting into it? What is your intention? What do you truly, truly want to create in your life? And that's, I don't know if you know this about me yet, you might not, but I'm a vision broker. And what that means is that I help purpose-driven entrepreneurs and artists get clear on their vision and then step into it powerfully. And what that often entails is a lot of clearing out so that you can get really clear on that vision, and then do that, the work of like stepping through the fear with courage into the unknown, which you are actually creating. I know those of you who do know me have probably heard me say this before, because it's one of my favorite things. When I heard this, I don't know, it's not a metaphor, maybe it's a metaphor, but when I heard this, something just clicked inside of my head and it changed everything. So get this: imagination is the memory of a future now. Imagination is the memory of a future now. So when you are creating your vision, what you're actually doing through that imagination is you are creating your future now. And that's where like the dreaming and the imagination, and it's like sending this cosmic drop into the universe, and it vibrates out through the universe, and then comes back to you. But you've got to have that drop and send it out. You've got to have a signal, right? Like, if you don't have a signal, the universe can't tune into you and give you what you want. So you've got to like be tuned in and have that signal. So that is like a huge part of that, and knowing that it's possible, right? We get in these limited mindsets and mind frames about like, oh, this is all I can do, or like, who was talking about it? I think Rima and Tiffany touched on this when they talked about, oh, when I get older, my body just can't do that because it can't. I'm 43 years old. I can do the splits. And I couldn't when I was a little girl. I had to work really hard to get that. But when you practice at something, you get better at it. And so what I want to offer you is this program where you can get to have the support and the accountability, okay? The accountability, I didn't really start making strides until I had somebody that I was accountable to, because I wasn't being accountable to myself. Yeah. So how many people are not being accountable to themselves? I bet it's out there. So I just went ahead and popped the link so you can check it out. The mechanics of the program are on there. You get it's a group program. You get 6 group coaching sessions. You get 6 group yoga meditation sessions. You also get 2 private coaching sessions with me. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of more bonuses. There's going to be a group Voxer that you get to be on as well. And we'll team you up with buddies so that you have buddies. And I'm doing this all for like, it's even half of what I usually do a 1 month for. So it's $9.97 for your 8-week level up experience. So if you are a person who is not going to settle, if you are really ready to step into your power and courage and let go of all of that other stuff that has been like clouding you and stopping you and getting in your way, then this is for you. And if it's not for you, that's totally cool too. But I'm really here to support those of you who are ready for the next stage and who want to step into that. So I've got that in the chat. Go ahead and sign up. Oh, I'm gonna do actual a 15-minute before the end of the recording for this Level Up 8-week program. You will also get a $500 gift card towards another program with me. So that's $500 off. So really, you'd only be paying, what is that? $497 for like 2 months. And all those calls and all of the support and really taking your life to the next level. Because I know 2020 has been like kind of a shit show. And right, like my business has soared. I've got a new man in my life. Like, jump on the train with me. I want to share this with you. Okay. So it's in the chat, that extra bonus of a gift card towards another program that I do. And yeah, so we'll get back to the event now. And I am excited to share with you Jackie Cote. So this is also another pre-recorded session. She is amazing. Patience and understanding of technology. La 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 la. Is this it? I think this is it. Okay, great. So go back to here.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to have Jackie Cote here today. Hi Jackie. Hey Susie. So Jackie couldn't make it live. Obviously, this is being taped because I'm in a different outfit. So we're really happy that you could come.
So I noticed that it's a little fuzzy and I don't know why, but enjoy it anyway.
And make this work. And I know you're got so many things and you're about to have a baby too. It's so amazing. So I'll just give you a little introduction to Jackie. She is a publicity and media strategist who helps soul-centered entrepreneurs get covered by major media, be featured globally, and inspire the world. After spending more than 10 years working in the media as a TV reporter, producer, and spokeswoman, Jackie started her own company so that she could have the flexibility to be a great wife and mom for her 2 children. Her goal is to help change the narrative in the media so that more transformational stories get featured. I freaking love that. Thank you. So my first question is, I imagine that the media industry is the majority of white males. And I actually think of that Will Ferrell movie, Anchorman, and the sexism and the absence of people of color, it actually made me cringe in the movie, even though it was supposed to be funny. It was just like, ah! So I'm guessing it could be fairly accurate depiction in some way. So when you were working in media as a reporter, producer, and spokeswoman, what was your experience like? And was there something specific that drove you to leave and start your own company?
Yeah, I love that question. So I actually became a journalist because I felt like I wanted to be able to share the stories that came from my community in my lifetime. And I felt like there was not a representation of that, of course, in small pockets, but not mainstream. And so that was a big driving force behind why I joined the media. And yet, you're right, like when you think about even now, it's changed so much because you see more diversity represented on camera. But when it comes to the decision making, the people that are deciding what stories, who are working as producers and behind the scenes, there's still a lot of room for growth when it comes to diversity. And, I'll just share with you an example of one of the things when I was working, even before I went into journalism, it happened twice. It was before I went into journalism, I had a college professor who was African-American, and at the time I had dreadlocks in my hair. And, I remember going to her thinking, wow, like she'll give me great advice about this. And I remember saying, hey, do you think that I'm going to be able to get a good position on air with my hair? And I remember her telling me, and I don't know if I asked the question or if she told me, but I remember her saying, you won't, and you've got to get rid of your hair. And at that time I was in college, I was really impressionable. And I remember my mom and sisters all like, and if, some of the people in your audience have ever had dreadlocks, it's like, we could have cut them off, but we like combed them out, and it was painful. It took days to get it done. And so that was one of my first experiences feeling like, wow, there really is a need for me to conform. There's a need for me to be something different than who I am in order to really fit in this industry. And interestingly enough, I wound up, basically not wearing natural hair. I went into getting my dream job, which was an on-air reporter. I wanted to not just be behind the scenes, but in front of the camera. And I remember in my second year reporting, at that time, I just couldn't fight the urge anymore to be more natural with my hair, with my look. And I did the big chop, which was cut off all of my, processed hair. And I went into work with natural hair one day. And I remember my boss calling me into his office, a white man, calling me into his office, like, you didn't ask permission to change your hair. As if I needed permission. I mean, there were lots of other reporters who would dye their hair red or blonde or, any of that. But I remember that being another very stark reminder that there is a need for more diversity at the table in the media. And so I remember having that hairstyle for the last few months of being on air, and it just being it was controversial back then. And so much has changed since then as far as hair, but there's still a lot of room to go.
Yeah, and I love that you went forward anyway, and that's incredible, and that they got to deal with it. Like it's just hair.
Yeah.
But it ends up being like so important, which is crazy to me. I actually kind of jumped the gun there with that question. I'm wondering, can you share with us a little bit about your background and history of how you came to do what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all perfect as far as the questions that you're asking, and I'll share with you that that's a lot of the grounding behind why I do what I do now in the world, which is help influencers and thought leaders get featured in the media, because I feel like there is such a need for positive voices. There's a need for voices that give you solutions and give you practical ways to shift and change your life. And I think often, people like you and I, Susie, we live in a bubble of coaches and things. People like, if I need anything to change in my life, I've got probably 10 people I could hire, from health to parenting to relationships, but the average person doesn't. And I think a lot of times they deal with hopelessness, mediocrity, doom and gloom, things like that. So that's one of the reasons why I left the industry. I felt like I could make such a bigger change by helping get more positive news stories out there. And so that's what we do in the world. And I think more recently, you and I were talking about the power of influence, because I think that most people, if they were to harness their influence and really get that as a coach, whether you're just starting or you've been doing it for years, you've got a certain level of influence, and how you use that influence can make a massive difference in the world. And so I think having more awareness around the fact that it is a power that you have, and also knowing how to leverage it, is key to us having the maximum impact possible.
Great. So that brings me into kind of a two-part question. So the first part is since the media often centers around negative, dramatic, and sensational stories, now that you've started your own company, and I'm really curious about what your experience has been like with your mission to bring that positive light to the media through transformational stories. Has it been easy, well received? What has been your experience?
It's an interesting dichotomy, because it's like the media feeds off of that, and yet, so it's it's kind of like I feel like I am someone who wills good in the world, but I know the secrets of the darkness of how to, but because I do know them, I'm able to take great stories and fit it into what really producers and journalists are looking for. And so my experience has been really positive. I mean, we've gotten more than 4,000 entrepreneurs featured in the media over the last few years. And I think sometimes, the only thing I would say is that I think sometimes you do have to think about, let's say we've gotten people featured that do the most woo-woo things in the world. That are people would never, one of our clients helps women in their 40s and over get pregnant through natural ways, like energy shifting and belief shifting and things like that. And that's not something you typically see in mainstream media, but we've gotten featured. Yeah, and so one of the ways that we got her featured was 2 years ago, they had a big fertility clinic fail where 2 or 3 big fertility clinics lost a bunch of eggs that were being stored and things like that. And so what often happens is that you have these paradigms in mainstream media or even in the world that are breaking down, and all of a sudden that's the perfect opportunity for someone who's already ahead of the curve to come in and share their expertise or why there's a better way. And so a lot of times we use those kinds of opportunities when something's timely that's happening that deals with your expertise. Other times we think about, okay, you might be advanced on the topic. Where is your audience at now? If they were to just start following the breadcrumbs, where would you meet them, 3 years before you got so advanced? And so often it's taking some things that are more complex or more out there and backing it up and figuring out, okay, where's the person at who's just getting started with this awareness or with this desire or that kind of thing. So I think using those two techniques has really supported us in getting those kinds of stories out. And every story that goes out is opening up possibility for all the other people in that industry that also have something to contribute. So even when I look at, some of the most well-known experts out there, they may, a lot of times even talking about health and diet, people will be like, well, I'm not Jillian Michaels, she's this and I'm more that. But Jillian Michaels has opened up what's possible for trainers and health people and stuff like that. And so you just keep building on that.
I love that. It's the momentum. It creates momentum for the whatever niche it is.
Yeah. So it's you're kind of borrowing on the people that have gone before you, but knowing that you're also creating a new path for others to follow. So that's what I love about what we do. And it's it's a challenge sometimes, but I think looking for those strategies really do work.
Cool. And then, so there's so many different ways that people create influence, and especially with social media like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. Like, what do you think of these different platforms for creating influence? And what are some of your basic hacks, if you're even allowed to share that?
Yeah, I mean, so interestingly enough, I would say that the any hack or any tip or tool that I would share, it really goes back to the way of being, which is to be in contribution and to be operating from a giving standpoint. So I think the people that create the most traction on TikTok or Instagram or even Facebook, or even when you're thinking about where your influence is, you know that you've got a lot of influence when you can post something and people are like, yes, I want that, or they're excited about it. It's like, but influence comes from being in contribution. And that was something that I discovered late last year. We started a new division in our company that doesn't have to do with PR and media. It's really helping people get access to legal services. And it was because of a personal experience that I went through where I had a huge issue with a client and I didn't have the money to pay for it. And so what I noticed though was that because I had been in contribution in people's lives, giving free tips about what PR is, or even doing interviews like this, or just sharing best practices or sending emails. Like, those are different ways to be in contribution. When I introduced something that didn't have anything to do with PR, I had a lot of people say yes, just because of the influence that I had. It's why people like Oprah can back Weight Watchers, or Taylor Swift can back Diet Coke, or you think about charities like Angelina Jolie with her charities that she has. It's why celebrities can raise millions of dollars, because they've been giving to a certain extent. And because of that contribution, their influence goes up, and people will say yes to anything they offer, whether it's a piece of candy or it's a song or whatever the case is. So I say that to say that I think before you really get down to the strategy of which platform or what to post and things like that, if you can just set a clear intention that you want to be in contribution, you want to be the one that's out there giving of your value, of your time, of your expertise, it's going to create a ripple effect with you being able to have really any door open for you because of the influence that you've created.
Great. So that you would say that's like the first step in creating influence is really being generous with your expertise and what you have to offer.
Yeah, I think that's at the core of anything, because I could go through a strategy and say, hey, post 2 times a day in the morning with this algorithm, figure out your ideal client avatar. I mean, I've done all those things and trained so many people to do them. But at the end of the day, if your way of being is not in contribution, it's going to be really difficult for you to build the kind of influence that can open doors for you.
Mm-hmm. And so I know this might go right back into what you just said, but if there was any one specific piece of advice you could give to our audience to begin to build their influence, what would that be?
I would say that it's about picking a lane and figuring out what you really want to be known for from an authority standpoint. I think one of the flip side of what I just said is that what I see people do wrong is that they've got 5 lanes. They're like, for example, we're remodeling our house right now, and last night I was looking up interior designers. And there was this one interior designer that's like, interior designer, also really great at cosmetology and hair and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I'm like, and on her Instagram, it had some interior designer pictures, but it had a bunch of hairstyles. And when I'm stacking her up against other interior designers, she might be great and talented at both, but I feel like it's really important to pick a lane, even if you're multi-creative, talented, things like that. I think it's important to pick a lane and be known for that, so that when people think about you in the world, they're like, oh yeah, Jackie PR or Jackie Media or whatever the case is, until you've hit a certain tipping point where you are well established. And then I think sometimes you can start to factor in something different or open a new division or, whatever the case is. So that's the one thing, is really picking a lane. And then the second thing I would say is figuring out something that's consistent for you. I think a lot of times when we talk about being in contribution or different strategies on different platforms, people feel like they have to be up morning, noon, and night at 1 a.m. answering, liking, commenting, things like that. And I think it's more important to be consistent than for you to feel like you need to be all over the place.
Like even when you say picking a lane, would that even mean with a social platform, like kind of sticking to one until that one is built?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that, unless you've got team. And if you've got team and you've got somebody that you've hired that's specifically going to work on this while you work on that, then that's another way to go about it. But if you're working on it solo, I would encourage you to find the platform that you think your audience is most paying attention to, your ideal audience or the people that you attract, and putting a lot of your focus and energy there. Because the other thing that happens, and this goes back to consistency, is people will go and say, okay, I'm going to open all the platforms. I mean, how many people have done that? I know I did that at one point. I was like, okay, I got to establish my presence. So I'm like, okay, set up my LinkedIn account. And I can't remember the last time I posted on LinkedIn. And so you want to be consistent with the place that you hang out in, because you'll start to see that means a lot more than you trying to be everywhere inconsistently or whatever the case is. And I think often you'll know that platform is really paying off for you when you see people go from not just liking or following or engaging with you, but saying yes to the things that you offer. And it could be something as simple as a summit or a video series or an actual offer. But I know for me, the thing that really shifted in my business was when I started to realize that I could do a post on Facebook, for example, and make $10,000 from one post. And that was when I started to realize, wow, like it's not just the posting, it's actually learning how to take that interest and convert it into clients or connections or whatever the case is that you're working on.
Yeah, I love that. And what it made me think about when you said that was relationships, and how if you're not consistent in a relationship and you don't communicate through whatever that platform is, it's like you're ghosting them, and it's like you don't want to do that to, especially like a new relationship if you have new followers. And then to me, when you said, having them come on to whatever you're offering, like that's almost like, okay, now we're going steady. Like now we're in a committed future. Like they've committed because they put the money down too. So that just kind of, I'm dating, so
no, I love these. This is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so I know you have a free gift for our audience, and I'm really excited about it personally, because I'm one of these multi-talented people who is an artist and does lots of things and have been getting better at picking that lane and getting in it. But I'm really excited about what you have to share for our audience.
Yeah, and before I share that, I will say that so I think just to encourage those of us that are multi-creatives is that you still get to be multi-creative. You just want to find more ways to weave in to the one central point that you're driving. So I love to dance. I love to travel. I remember when I first started my business, I had a blog that was like, I didn't know what I was going to offer as a like way of making a living. And I was like, oh, I'll put motherhood, travel, dance, all on the blog, and maybe it'll amount to something. And as I got clearer on what I do in the world, it's not like I have to leave those things all together. I think a lot of times people feel like they've got to shut down the things they're creative in. What I would encourage you to do is find ways to weave it into what you do. So for example, I might go to Bali, but, travel and talk about how I love traveling. But I'm also going to, while I'm there, share a video about media and why media might have an international influence, or media in Bali, or things like that, so that I'm still driving home the thing that I'm well known for. And so that's what I would just encourage people to do.
Yeah, that is sage wisdom right there, 100%.
Cool. So yeah, just to share my free gift, it's something that we just got asked about over and over again on the same point of the work that I do. This was work that I never thought I'd be doing in the world. I would much rather be traveling the world and dancing all the time. And I was running away from doing media. And at the time, I had a lot of colleagues that would come to me and say, Jackie, hey, I got this book that just came out, or I got this project. How do I get media attention? And so what we decided to do was put together a template that is how to get on national media. And basically it kind of walks you through who you need to be contacting, what you need to be saying. It actually gives you a sample pitch that you can use and things like that, because I think just by having that, you'll have so much more awareness, and you may actually luck up and have someone say yes just by following the template. So that's my gift to you. And I just think that we need more stories. We need more diverse stories in the media. We need to be able to show people what's possible. And so I never want anyone to think that they've got to wait to get out there. I think sometimes people feel like they've got to be perfect. And I'm like, no, you can actually get media today. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, is to take advantage of the free gift, start thinking about media, even if it's a podcast that you want to do or something like that, just so that you can start to make a difference in that way.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure. You're such a bright light, and I'm grateful to have you in my life and at this event. So thank you so much.
Woo, I'm excited for everyone tuning in and watching this event. It is so fun.
Yeah, so make a free gift and then just let us know when to tune in when you're on the media.
Awesome, will do.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Well, okay, it's not there either. So I will make sure that you get that in the email that comes. So make sure that you tune in for that. And I am excited.
And like from our practices of just honestly us just doing a few movements and having time together to stretch, for them stretching and to be able to have some time to like do something different, and then to have that time to have that silence. And I didn't at first understand like how would it land. And I remember the kids coming up to me and going, I feel so much better.
Oh, that's so good.
Like from like 11-year-olds, you know, so they can be a little bit tough, right? So I was like, wow, I feel so much better. And what I would see is that the fact of, number one, for us to be able to have a chance to put ease to our minds and just to breathe without, I think it's just something that I think people still don't get, where in this country and many other countries with Blackness, with being a person of color, there's always an extra alert that is there that is we're so used to. And it's just like, you know, like, okay, like if I have to speak in this way, and like, okay, make sure not to do this, but to do this, so that way people feel comfortable, and make sure your voice sounds like this versus when you're talking like that. So it's always like how I think about when I'm teaching my classes, where I can give cues for alignment, but I also tell people you can totally sit back and lean on the chair, kick your feet out, you know, be at home, get comfortable. And how we can get back to feeling at home and feeling comfortable, because in that first piece really is like holding people with this care and this love and creating a space, because it's the ultimate piece of liberation, you know, because if we're not liberated, no one's liberated. That's how it goes. If I'm not free, you're not free, no one's free. And so how to be able to do this where we can remove harm, we can reduce that, we can actually bring in care, bring in comfort, bring in support where people can drop. Because perfection doesn't come from adding, it comes from when we can drop the unnecessary. And we always have to carry that necessarily, but how to create a space and spaces where we can drop and remove more of the mass and the unnecessary layers and be able to like spread out. Like when you get home from a hot day and your air is on and you just want to let everything,
Everything
think about that from like a point of a person that even when, it's like, even at home, me turning on the news or thinking about, the opportunities are if I have a son and he's going out or my daughter's going out and like, are they going to make it back? I'm going on vacation to another part of Pennsylvania and I have family members that are nervous. So it's like, I can't be free completely on vacation. So my mission, it comes through that care, that comfort, that dropping, and that way we can really be able to, like I said, for what I know for me is true, like really check in a deeper way. So that way that inspiration can come out. So then maybe we're looking at getting more courage of how we can have our liberation, how we can stand up for ourselves. And that way we can also be able to look at how we can do this together as a community. I'm talking about us as a global community. So yeah, I really, that's the truth in that.
Yeah. And, our roundtable that we had spoke exactly to what you're speaking about of how there's just like, basically like a sense of always being on call or like anxiety of like, how I show up in the world and making sure that white people feel comfortable around me. And so not really ever getting to kick back. So I am excited for you to help us kick back right now and let off some of that steam. And I know that I will never know what it's like for you. And I pledge to do my best to stand with and for you and for equality. And that's my pledge. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to you and let you lead us through a meditation or however this looks, you want this to look.
Yeah, no problem. And I just want to get for a time check, how long would you like it? Because we're at 15 after right now. That way I can.
Maybe like five minutes. Is that okay? Okay,
yeah,
great.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thank you for what you said. I do appreciate that. This is a great offering just to be able to bring this more into the community. And so everyone, I wanted to be able to bring you into a short meditation. And so for this, like I mentioned before, how do you want to sit right now? And to check in for that, if you feel comfortable, perhaps bringing the eyes to a close, or maybe we can just bring our gaze away from the screen right now. And provide yourself with some natural breath. So it doesn't have to be so deep and forced, but just in a way where you can just breathe and notice your body connected to a surface. And you may naturally start to notice the breaths going in deeper, and maybe the breath starts to go in so deep that the belly wants to expand, but in a way we can still hold that gentleness. And so again, the eyes can be open, halfway are closed, and at any point there's a discomfort with just noticing sensations or in anything I say, you're always welcome to shift and do something else, like walking around, stretching out, and doing anything that feels good for you. And so just to move the body just a little bit, we're going to come into some head rolls and just rolling the head down to the side, back. And you can go as fast as or slow as you want, but in a way that we can be beneficial to the body. And we can incorporate the breath or just let it go. You're just noticing the sensations that come up. And when you're ready, perhaps taking a breath when the chin reaches the chest and going in opposite directions with these head rolls. I love these when I'm sitting at a desk. Perhaps you've been sitting and standing and in different positions all day from our long all day conference with Susie. So once this feels complete, you can bring your chin back down to your chest and just allow it to hang. And slowly bringing the chin back up parallel. You can keep the eyes closed if you would like. And from here, we'll start to plant our feet nicely onto the ground, or you can keep the feet out if that feels good. I like to keep the feet like planted flatly onto a surface that helps me with grounding. And you can bring your hands to the thighs if that feels supportive for more grounding, or flipping the palms up. And with this full moon that's going on right now, there's a lot of releasing with full moons. And so I like to be able to flip the palms up, not only for inspiration, but also to see what I can receive. Like I'm holding something that is dear in my palm of my hand without crushing it or grabbing it. And maybe here you can notice your palms. And if you're able to join the rest of us with our palms just gently open, so we're not forcing it open, just but allowing the fingers to soften. And then maybe here we take in a breath, and with that inhale, we can notice our palms gently open. And every time we release the breath, we can allow the shoulders to drop a little bit more. And so joining either with the breath or simply just noticing the palms resting on the thighs, or perhaps it can be in another position that feels supportive for you. And so maybe we can imagine, without putting much thought into it, just what is dear right now that we're holding, that we can have in our palms in this open way, in this open heart. And then maybe when you take that next inhale, maybe you lift the heart, allow the chest to come just a little bit forward. And exhaling. So this open heart, open palms. Let's be receptive maybe to all of the lessons that have come our way today, lessons that are yet to come. And I offer to you, perhaps maybe we could think about thinking of ourselves and holding ourselves in a way with an open palms and open hands, as being carried in a compassionate way. And maybe we can bring that noticing to the heart center and notice a version of ourselves resting in the heart. It's almost like we're resting in the heart space. And I love going back to that whenever I feel like I want to have a version of myself that's completely loved and carried. And it can be tough. but it's always available to us. Maybe just tough to access. And as we close, you can join me in bringing our palms together, and we're just going to rub our palms, build up that heat. And you can allow the palms to open. You can always use it to give yourself a nice neck massage. Oh, that feels good. And then maybe rub one last time. And feel free to have open again, or you can start to massage along the ears. Maybe even listening and just hearing what are the vibrations in the space. Self-massage is so loving, it's so good. Just anywhere that you can massage it in a way that makes you feel safe and supported. And bringing our palms together, allowing us to connect both sides of our bodies, the left and right brain. Maybe bringing our thumbs to the heart center. And as we bow, I bow to you, and this is a way to show thanks to Suze, to everyone who's attended, to the panelists, to everyone in the fight for liberation. Thank you for the opportunity of being here today. I appreciate you. Peace.
Thank you so much. That was so deep and beautiful, and what a perfect way to wind down our event today. I'm so grateful. Yes, and I'm going to put in here. You have a free gift for our audience. I'd love for you to. Why can't I put this out here? Let me try this. I'd love for you to share with us about that.
Yes, so we had a workshop this past summer. We're all virtual right now. Dr. Opiemi Param, who is a retired medical MD, the name of the workshop is called Where There Are No Doctors, COVID-19, Our Communities, Our Cities. And this is going to how you can support your communities, your household, with any individuals that were affected by COVID-19, especially for individuals that are underinsured or uninsured. Also, it gives support for showing people how to do mutual aid, how to be able to bring in and have a community type of organizing around mutual aid. And that way it goes beyond just your household, but how to be able to check in on neighbors and what to be able to do. So that way we can help keep people safe and help keep people healthy without having to rely totally on systems that may not be supportive for us.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with our community here. And I know, man, grassroots is where it's at. I do my own grassroots with homeless in my neighborhood, you know, and it's so cool because you get to actually connect that way. So thank you for this opportunity to learn how to better connect with our neighbors and our community to help them during this time. And so thank you so much, Adrienne, for coming on, everyone. I have popped that link in the chat. Mo came to say goodbye. He loved the meditation too. So, all right. Thank you so much, and such a pleasure. I look forward to connecting more over the time, and I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, and take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your weekend. Big love.
Bye, Adrienne.
Bye.
All right. Well, we did it. Yay! This is Mo. His name is Mahatma Oreo. And it's a funny story. I'll tell you the story really quick. My boyfriend at the time, it was like 5 years ago, like this cat just showed up on my doorstep and he started calling him Oreo. And I'm like, dude, the cat's name is not going to be Oreo. I'm like, that's an unhealthy cookie. And he's like, well, you're going to name it something like Mahatma. And I said, you're probably right. And we laughed about it. And then one day he texted me and he said, how's Mo? Mahatma Oreo. And I said, that's cute. We'll keep it. So, and it's all about, it goes back to building those bridges, right? Like, no, it's like right or wrong. It's only thinking that makes it so. So Oreo, is that a wrong name? No, it's not. And we created a bridge between the two. So thank you all so much for being here. My cat's head is in the way of my scrolling hand. So are you going to go down? So I just wanted to give you one more opportunity to come on to the Up Level program. I would love to have you. I think it would be so fun. And I'm going to pop this in the chat again. Again, if you sign up before the end of this, you will get a $500 gift card towards your next program. And also, I forgot, there's like a lot of other bundles that come with it. And what that is you also get, with this, you're going to get access to all my Speaker Secrets library. So I've done 3 shows now, 1, 2, and 3. The first 2 have 21 or 22 episodes each. It winds up being like 52 episodes altogether. And then you and then you get the 15-minute bonus as well with the $500 gift card. And then of course the group calls, the yoga, meditations, and private coaching with me. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot this part. This is actually a huge part of it. You also get a bottle of hemp extract, and you get to choose. There's one called Calm and there's one called Focus. And this hemp extract, I am not joking you, has transformed my health. And I thought I was a really healthy person, and I was for the most part, but actually being able to have the hemp help support my body. And what hemp does is it actually helps balance your entire body. So it balances the nervous system, the endocrine system, your digestive system. So it really helps in so many ways. So you also get a bottle of that along with your program. So that's super, super duper exciting. And go ahead and hop onto that. I'd love to have you. And make sure that you watch the replay if you missed anything. We'll be sending that out soon, and I will get you an email with all of the links to the free gifts. And it's been such a pleasure to have you. If you want to pop on the chat and say goodbye, it would be lovely to peaceful and quiet inside too. It was just so beautiful. Thanks, Deborah. Deborah's coming on to the program. I'm excited for that. Awesome. Great. And so, yes. Great. Lovely to have you. Manzella, that's a beautiful name. Thank you for coming on and joining us. If you missed any of the other speakers, make sure to watch the recording. Thank you, Brittany, for coming on. It was lovely to have you. And I'm very honored, and I will get them and I will answer them. So if you have any questions or you want to connect, I am there for you. Oh, I almost forgot. There's more. You also get with the Level Up, with all of this that you've already done, you get a 40-minute coaching call with me, as well as the other 2 private coaching calls. So lots of stuff to share. It's been such an honor and pleasure to have you, and have a beautiful rest of your